here on the WSUW Whitewater. This is Hawk Talk, your sports show during the week. Today's your Wednesday edition, Wednesday, the first day of December of 2021. I'm your host, Max Alverson. Don't have the crew we usually have. Well, I'm missing two people, but we got Aaron, Alyssa, and Parker. We all feeling good today?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet. Alrighty, we can just jump right in. So, our first topic is the Green Bay Packers. This last Sunday, they got the win over the LA Rams, which they won by a larger margin than I thought. I thought it was going to be a lot closer of a game, but they managed to get a win at Lambeau to improve their record. They are now in the number one. They're number one in the power rankings with all of the injuries that they've suffered all year. So I just wanted to throw the question out there. Do you think it's the Packers' year once we get, we look pretty good even with key players out. So do you think once we get those get those players back healthy onto the roster, will we just be that much better?
So right now the Packers are missing, I believe, Zadarius Smith. They for sure have Bakhtiari out, but should be getting him back at some point. Elton Jenkins is out for the year, which is pretty hurtful. And Jair, I believe, should be back pretty soon for the Packers. So those are massive names, absolutely massive names. I mean, you could argue that's 5 of their top 10 players right there that are injured right now.
Exactly.
So very interesting how this is formulating, where they look so dominant against a Rams team. I don't know what the deal with the Rams is. I think they are a warm weather team, actually, is what my thoughts are on the Rams currently, because it doesn't seem that they can come into Green Bay and really handle them well, especially in inclement weather, which is what the playoffs is. Now, I will say I think this is the best the Packers team I've seen, probably among the last 2 NFC Championship teams in this year. But that being said, I think you have to say that the NFC still runs through the Buccaneers. I don't think you can take them off the pedestal yet. They've been up and down, but they have the same team, and they kind of did the same thing last year. And then you look at the Cardinals, they almost beat the Packers, so they should be in the back of the Packers' minds. Now, the Packers getting that 1 seed would be pretty big, so they could, the Cardinals would eventually have to come to Green Bay, Buccaneers as well. But one thing I know for sure is that this Packers team is more impressive than the last couple of years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say that last year's would probably be the top team for me. But the way that they're managing, like the way that they're playing with injuries, like I kind of thought about it while you're talking about all the players. Like we didn't have in the Arizona game, we had basically backup receivers with besides like Randall Cobb, they had maybe a combined 50 career catches, and I'm probably highballing it. We don't have Robert Tonyan anymore.
Yeah, Aaron Jones was out.
Like you said, Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, which are all like, if you think about it, they're all Pro Bowl caliber players. So
absolutely.
For us to continue to be on that, play the way that they were playing with those injuries, it's impressive.
I think that one player that's been huge has been Devondre Campbell.
Oh, absolutely.
Him just being able, just a tackle eater. He's going to get the cruddy tackle that it's a gain of 3 yards on a run, but maybe in past years they break the tackle, it goes for 7, maybe a first down, and also able to defend pretty well. He had that interception against the Bengals and might have had another one this year, not 100% sure, but he's just been a relief for a Packers team that I feel hasn't had a good middle linebacker since I don't know, A.J. Hawk at his best, maybe Nick Barnett, I don't know, some blast from the past, but guys like that.
That's for sure. Speaking of interceptions, you gotta think of Rasul Douglas, who we picked up from the Cardinals practice squad.
Yeah.
And what he's been able to do for us is insane. Like, it's just amazing how you let him get an opportunity and he's able to make the most of it with the pick to seal the game in Arizona, where he came from, and then have the pick six against the Rams this last Sunday.
Yeah, he was NFC Defensive Player of the Week, I think, actually, Rasul Douglas. I think
so,
for this
yeah,
last week,
yeah.
which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So, I know you mentioned the Buccaneers, but are there any kind of NFC teams that you maybe are nervous about come playoff time?
For the Packers, you're saying?
Yeah.
You know,
Packers kind of be nervous.
you look at like the divisions, I mean, the Saints are down pretty badly, so if they get in, that wouldn't worry me as a Packer fan. I mean, the Cowboys, Aaron Rodgers just dominates them. So I don't know how, no matter how good the Cowboys look, I just can't see them mentally beating Aaron Rodgers by himself. He'll beat them alone no matter who's on the field. So NFC East, basically none. NFC South, you got the Buccaneers, sure. And then NFC West, the Seahawks are having a down year, and they normally play the Packers well. The Niners, I'm not 100% sure about. They're a decent team, but I just don't think they necessarily have the talent this year. Jimmy G's their quarterback. That just limits you to such a level. And the Packers' defense is better. So, like, the Niners beat them, 2 years ago when Jimmy G threw like 7 passes and they just ran for crazy amounts of yards. I don't think that happens this year because of guys like Devondre Campbell and like all these additions we're talking about that are stepping up pretty huge.
Yeah. And what, going back to the 49ers 2 years ago, you could say the same thing. I know when they played them in the regular season of that 2019 season?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, the 2019 season, they got blown out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, oh crap. And then we have to play them in the playoffs, and then the same thing happened. And it's like, oh geez. And then this last year was the Buccaneers. We got blown out by the Buccaneers, and then we get to the NFC Championship game, same thing, and then it was a little bit more competitive, but still we just did not play our best.
I would be very interested to see an NFC, like if the Cardinals get the 1 seed, another, crazy Packers-Cardinals playoff game. I feel like those have just been absurd over the years. And while the Packers haven't normally come out on top, they did in the regular season this year, even though it came down to literally the last play. But that could be a really interesting game. I think if the Bucs are out of it or just not looking as good, that would probably be the best game, the best championship game.
Yeah, to me, I think the Packers, the team to beat, is the Buccaneers still. I mean, I think there's still a little bit of, turmoil from last year. Because I think the Packers can take on any NFC team that comes at them. I mean, just look at how injury-ridden we were against the Cardinals, and we still managed to beat them. You can say that there was a little bit of luck there with that little interception at the end to kind of seal the deal. But, at the same time, I think the Packers at full strength is honestly one of the best teams in the league. So I think just because you can never count out Tom Brady just because of how good he is, and with the offensive power that he has with the Buccaneers and just the defense that can back it up too, I think the team to beat still is the Buccaneers, just because you're gonna have to go through Tom Brady eventually to get to the Super Bowl, especially since he's in the NFC now. So that's just how I see it.
I think if we were to play the Buccaneers again in the playoffs, I think it would be a lot different, but I still think whoever has the ball last in that game will take the W. Because I know Tom Brady, I think he just did it this last week against, I forgot who they played.
Against the Colts, yeah.
Yeah, the Colts. The Colts were up, and then they gave him the ball, and
game-winning drive.
That's what happens. That's just what Tom Brady does. It's crazy that he can do that so many times, but it's the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Going back to the 49ers game, we barely won, and Aaron Rodgers had 37 seconds left, two or three passes, and we're kicking a field goal to win. So
Yeah, they're just closers, so I feel like that point is correct. Like if whoever has the ball is ever and it's tied or they're down like maybe like a field goal or something, it's gonna come down to the wire. But the playoffs should be good just because of how great the league is right now. So I think it's gonna be great regardless.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say something. I completely lost my train of thought. Dang it. It'll come back to me. I was gonna say, if the Packers without Bakhtiari and Jenkins can hold up, their offensive line can hold up against the Rams, probably the best defensive front in football right now. If we can just run the ball against them with no issue and only allow one sack, which I guess it was a gimme sack. But if we only allow one sack on defense, we'll be okay against the Buccaneers front.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's a pretty ferocious team and a pretty ferocious front seven that gave the Packers O-line a lot of problems. Now, they didn't have Bakhtiari. They probably would this time, but then they wouldn't have Elton Jenkins. Although, I will say the Packers O-line has looked shockingly good this year with kind of the replacements filling in. They lost Lindsley, drafted that center out of Ohio State, and I forget his name, but he's looked pretty good this year.
He's been injured a little bit, though.
He was banged up for a little bit, but just, again, replacement guys then. So he looked good, and then anyone that's stepped up, Turner, of course, has been around a little bit. He's stepped up too.
It's crazy how, because the offensive line was one of my main concerns going into the season, just because there were so many unknowns. And it did kind of show the first couple weeks, but once they figured it out, they really impressed me, even with Jenkins going down, especially what they did against the Rams on Sunday. So that was one of my main concerns. Another one was the defense. Looking at their preseason games, their defense looked atrocious.
So bad.
And I was like, if this is what we're gonna have to deal with all season, I'm very scared. But I know on Twitter I saw a thing. It was like somebody made a Joe Barry apology form, and I was like, yeah, I'd have to sign that if it was real.
Right.
Sorry about that, Joe Barry.
One interesting thing, if you had to like rank the teams that were most concerning for the Packers going into the playoffs, it would be like Cardinals and Buccaneers by a decent amount, probably in whatever order you want.
I'd put the Rams in there too.
Maybe, but I think my argument would be Vikings third. I think if I was the Packers, I would rather play the Rams, honestly, than the Vikings. They've just had the Rams number the last 2 years, even with Stafford. You know, he might have been banged up that game, but I just don't know if I could trust the Rams. They don't run the ball super well. When they rely on the pass, the Packers just eat off of it because they know what's coming. So look, maybe the Vikings could give them a scare. Something to look out for.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do think that was a fluke game when the Packers went into Minnesota a couple weeks back. Our defense just did not look good. I don't know if it was just a really good game plan by Mike Zimmer, whoever makes that game plan. But they certainly had the defenses number that game, and we just couldn't really get anything going on offense until late. So.
And that also happened last year, where in Lambeau Field the Vikings beat the Packers. So Mike Zimmer kind of knows like how to at least limit the Packers' offense, and they have enough weapons where it can be dangerous any game. They just kind of mess it up half the time. So you never know.
That's true. The Vikings are like a
dark horse.
A dark horse, yeah. Like at first it's like they're the Vikings. Like if you look at their record, let's see what their record is.
5-6, I think.
They're 5-6. But if they want to, they could be
way better.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is having a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
Like the best year of his career, possibly.
Yeah, he's having a very underrated season.
It does look a little worse because he lined up under the guard this last weekend instead of the center on a very important play. So that does knock him.
That's true. That's Kirk Cousins for you.
The one thing I'm concerned about for the Packers is Mason Crosby. I mean, I was watching it with my friend in her dorm, and we're watching the game, and Mason Crosby misses like a field goal or two. Now, he can miss one, that's fine, but he has done this in the past several games, which has made me kind of mad at this point. So, like, I don't know if he should get traded or if we should get a new kicker. Like, something's up.
I do it is a cause of concern. I do think that we have a new holder, and I believe a newish long snapper, rookie long snapper. I'm not. Don't quote me on that. But I know that's a cause of concern. I know that was a concern in one of the games. I forgot which game it was. But they just could not get things right in that aspect.
The Bengals game, perhaps? That was kind of... I know there was a lot of missed kicks there, but...
I don't think it was that game.
Okay.
Was it the KC game?
Yeah, it was the KC game.
He was missing a lot, too.
Just the snaps were off. The timing was off. But I think when he had a slump a couple years back, they brought in a kicker for a competition, and then I think he had one of his best years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what they got to do again, just to be like, hey, if you don't do we'll replace you, like we tried to do before. Prove us wrong, please. I want them to prove the coaches wrong if they do bring in another kicker to try out. Because I really like Mason Crosby. He's been really good kicker for us and most of his career. But I think they need to figure something out with him, because special teams is definitely a concern.
Yeah, he's definitely been lacking. If you really think about it, we shouldn't have lost the Kansas City game.
Yeah, that's true.
Jordan Love didn't really play all too bad if you compare just stats wise. He and Mahomes relatively had the same game. So ideally the Packers should be sitting at 9-2. You can argue 9
Should be 9-1.
Yeah, 9-1 still or whatever.
Because if Mason Crosby doesn't miss the game or miss a field goal in the Vikings game, we would have won that game.
Exactly. So it just comes down to the little things. Maybe they're gonna have to rethink special teams a little bit. Maybe do that whole competition kicker kind of thing. But we'll see. I still have faith in Crosby just because he's been with us for so long and we know how accurate he is. But maybe it's just in a slight slump. Just needs to get out of it before playoffs.
Yeah. He in recent years he's had a couple slumps, but when he's on it, he's on it. He's so accurate when he not when he wants to be, but when he has to be, he's pretty accurate. He can get it done.
He had a really good game though, game 3 or 4 or 5, where he got that field goal to win the game. That was cool. Why can't we have that again? Now he's just missing. It's so weird.
It's kicking is such a mental thing that it's almost unexplainable how it goes down. It's inexplicable how a guy can have such a great year or such a great game, like you said, and then all of a sudden the rest of the year is just shaky. But what you said, Max, he goes through he'll be good for 5 years, and then he has a bad year, because he's been around forever. This is his 16th year or something.
He's the leading scorer in Packers history.
Wow.
Wow, okay.
But he'll go 5 years of having really great years and then a bad year, and then another 5 years goes by bad year, because this is his third bad season. He's had 2 other versions of this. So, and I think because he's a club legend, like you said, leading scorer, I feel there is cause for concern this year. I wouldn't bring anyone in, probably. I think you ride it out, see how the playoffs goes, and maybe he wants to retire or something after this year, I don't know. But then, depending on how the postseason goes, you bring him back regardless, and if it's bad, then you bring in a guy to maybe, like you said, light a little fire under his butt, give him a little competition, say, hey, we will replace you, we don't want to, you're club legend. But at the same time,
we're thinking
cost
about
us
it.
This last playoffs possibly. Obviously, we'll have to see how it goes. And in the end, like you said, the Packers could have a better record. So even if this costs them home field, that could be a pretty big deal. So even if he has a decent playoffs you did kind of cost him a couple of games. So I think regardless, in the offseason, you may be bringing a guy to it. Just address it.
Yeah. I just looked it up. Mason Crosby has played 693 games with a total points of 13,435 points.
It's a lot.
And
It's a lot of
yeah,
games.
like I said before, he's the leading scorer in Packers history.
Like, think about that. The last 693 Packer games you've watched, he's been the kicker, I think. Did he miss time? He might have missed a little bit at some point, but
I'm not sure.
pretty sure it's been him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
He's been with us for quite a long time.
Mm.
That's very impressive. So.
It's funny going back to like the old Madden games and still seeing him like in the game. It's like, holy crap.
Right.
Been around longer than Tom Brady? Probably not. But
He hasn't.
I don't know what Mason Crosby went.
He has not, but it is funny. I was just going to say, when you look at the first video game Tom Brady was in versus the most recent Madden, like, the graphics are just absurd. Like, you can't even see his face or recognize him in the original one he was
All
in.
the faces are the same. It's
Right,
Just
yeah.
a different color.
Yeah, just generic.
Geez. Okay. We got to switch topics. We've been on the Packers way too long. We'll still stick in the NFC, but we're going to switch it over to the winless Lions. And will they get a win this season? Who knows?
No.
The remaining schedule, they got the Vikings, the Broncos, the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Seahawks, and the Packers again for their final game.
I think not. They will not win at all. It would be like kind of funny if they didn't though. I would call them like the Jets, honestly. But they're playing some pretty good teams in the next few weeks. They're like way better than them. So yeah, I think they're just gonna stay 0 like that.
But the thing is, like, if you look at their the teams they've played, they lost to the Ravens 19-17. That was only a 3-point game. Again, 19-17 over the Vikings. We won't talk about that. They tied with the Steelers. 13-10 against the Browns, and then 14-16 over the Bears. So they've lost close games. They just haven't been able to close any out. And I feel bad. Like hearing like Dan Campbell's like inductee speech, or when he like made his first speech as the Lions head coach, I was like, oh snap. Should we be scared with the Lions? Like, and then when
kneecaps. That was his
yeah,
big
he
line.
said something about biting kneecaps off. I was like, Jesus, this guy's the real deal. And then when they played the Packers, they caught it. They dominated them in the first quarter.
Packers had to come back a little
First
bit.
half, maybe.
Yeah.
But Jared Goff is Jared Goff at the end. So, but yeah, I feel bad for the. I feel, even though they're a division rival, I feel bad because only because they have like two Packers that I really like, which is Tim Boyle and Jamal Williams.
Yes.
Like, I'm a huge, wherever Jamal Williams goes, I'm gonna be a fan of his.
He's a fun-loving
How can you
guy.
not be a fan of Jamal Williams?
Yeah. I will say the schedule, of course, it's tough remaining for them because they're worse than everyone, but I think maybe I saw they play the Falcons as one of these final remaining games. That one kind of stood out to me because the Falcons tend to kind of have meltdowns, and I know that I believe the last time the Falcons played the Lions did win on a game-winning Stafford touchdown when like Todd Gurley was supposed to go down short of the end zone and he accidentally scored. I don't know how you accidentally scored, but he did accidentally score, and it allowed the Lions to get the ball back and win, which was classic Falcons and not classic Lions. So I could see maybe something like that happening. But like Max, I love that stat, like 5 games decided by 3 points or less. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty tough. That in theory could be 2 wins, 2-3 wins. Obviously, most of those are their fault that they lose
Yeah.
those, but 2 to 3 wins possibly. I think they really could scrape one together. And this is partially because I said I'm picking the Lions every week on Hawk Talk until they finally win. So partially biased.
They should at least get one. I can see them snagging the Falcons game too.
Yeah.
Or even if they play like how they did against the Packers the first time, maybe they could get that one, but I don't know. Detroit sports right now just kind of sucks. So
That's true.
it's hard to root for them or want to see them win.
I could maybe, with their remaining schedule left, I could maybe see either the Broncos or the Falcons.
Yeah, Broncos or Falcons.
Those are the only, unless they put a surprise in there somewhere.
They're not beating the Cards or anybody else.
No.
Maybe Seahawks, but
Maybe they've looked pretty bad.
yeah, Seahawks have been
Yeah.
terrible this year.
And the Lions actually might be more inspired than any of these, or not any, but like than a couple of these teams by the time they play them, because those teams might be out of it, but like
They just want to win.
not so bad. The Lions are like, we need to win. We do, like, pride is on the line. So they're bringing their best every week. Like the Falcons might just be like, well, a better draft pick wouldn't hurt right now, so maybe we don't go all out against this team. So, like, obviously that could still result in the Lions' loss because they're so bad, but I just think I gotta have optimism. I like the team too much.
At least get
I feel
one.
bad for them.
Yeah. You're already picking first, so that's all over and done with. Just get like one or two.
Yeah.
I could see them winning against the Broncos and the Falcons, depending on their play.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny but not funny when the press conference, Dan Campbell comes out. I think there was one he was like, we were so close, like, I feel so bad for these players. I'm like, dang, that makes my heart hurt.
I think he cried during that one, and I was like, man, if you're not rooting at least a little bit for this team, like, you have no heart.
Yeah. As like hardcore as Dan Campbell is, that was like a feel bad. He put his heart on his sleeve right there.
Very true.
Yeah. So if they, besides playing the Pack, I really wanted them to win on Thanksgiving.
I wanted it so bad.
That was a terrible Thanksgiving game, though. You're like not going to mention the fact that they had Bears, Lions for Thanksgiving.
At least it was an early game
Yeah.
and not one of the later games.
I almost like the Bears-Lions game or the Lions game every Thanksgiving because it's always the first game, and it's like maybe you're like just starting your Thanksgiving morning or however your timeline works, but it's probably pretty early in your Thanksgiving routine. So like you're just kind of hanging out with family and maybe having a beer or two, and you throw on the Lions game and
Yeah.
you just kind of laugh at it.
Yeah, waiting for everybody to get there still.
Right. You can
least-
do stuff during it and you don't feel bad.
Yeah, get up and go to the snack table with the sausage, crackers, and cheese, the chips and dip.
Funny thing about the Thanksgiving games, you know how before the games, you're like, take your pick, who's gonna win, right? You know how they do that?
On like Fox.
Yeah, like everyone will get their pick, who's gonna win,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So I picked and I got all three right.
Nice.
Like all the teams, so like I just guessed. I'm like that team, and that team, and I guessed right.
Did you win anything?
No.
Oh. You won a congratulations. You got everything right. But we will root for the Lions as we move into our next topic, which staying in the NFL, last NFL topic, which is, I know this has been talked about a little bit throughout Twitter I've seen and stuff, but who do you guys think is the leader of NFL Coach of the Year?
So I did look up the odds before this. I should probably pull them up to see, just to make sure.
Yeah.
But, so Bill Belichick of my beloved New England Patriots is number one. I think it does make sense. Now, it's tricky because we have a good team, actually. Like, the roster is good. It's just the idea of him being able to take that roster with a rookie quarterback and make it this good. So that's why I think the rest of the regular season means so much, because Bill Belichick's one, Cliff Kingsbury is two for the Cardinals. I like that just purely out of respect to their record and their division and the fact that they've had so many injuries similar to the Packers, which is why LaFleur is actually 3 on this list, and I don't hate that either. I think he does an awesome job. But Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, 3 games with Colt McCoy, and I believe they've gone 2-1. believe that's their record with him. And so I like those three to lead it. I think maybe another name to throw out there, Zach Taylor for the Cincinnati Bengals, because they've kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, you knew they were talented because they drafted super well the last couple years. But just to be able to actually put it together on the field, you can say you drafted as well as you want. But like Cincinnati has a Lions-like culture of losing, I feel like, over the last 20 years. Not quite as bad, but pretty bad. And for him to kind of be able to turn them into an exciting team, I think is interesting. And maybe one more would be Mike Vrabel, because the Titans are still, I believe they're second in the AFC right now. Not 100% sure. I think the Patriots might be first. But they've done a pretty good job at keeping their head above water without literally their whole offense, Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think that's a solid top three, just because, I mean, the Patriots are basically starting raw with like a new quarterback, and the record that they have, and Mac Jones is looking like the new cornerstone of the Patriots franchise. So, I mean, I always root for, I never rooted for Tom Brady, but like I like the Patriots. So like, and Mac Jones looks great whenever I watch the Patriots games. So I root for Mac Jones in that sense. I think Matt LaFleur is good. You can argue he can be 2 or 3 just because of like the drama that is insinuated over the offseason. But, you know, like the narrative comes into factor, like Aaron Rodgers being mad, like not even want to play, criticizing like GM and like last minute decisions in that Tampa Bay game. So, but like look at what Matt LaFleur's done in the last 2 seasons. Back-to-back NFC title games. Who knows, it might be 3. But, yeah, I think that's a solid top 3, regardless of where you put them.
I would say Matt LaFleur is either 1 or 2. I'd put him. It's hard because I'm a Packers fan, so I want to put him 1. But I do believe Belichick deserves to be 1. But I will add, Mac Jones looks like he's been in the league for like 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
He is not playing like a rookie whatsoever.
He's looking good.
I think he's in the top like completion percentage. I think is he first? He's up there.
I haven't seen the total for completion percentage, but I know like among the last X amount of weeks, he's super high on that list. Like maybe since week 4, he's like top 2, 1 or 2.
Yeah, he's 70.3% completion percentage.
I like what was said about the drama though around the Packers, because I didn't really take that into account. And like you look at the Patriots and the Packers, and it's like the Patriots had relatively no drama this offseason.
Yep.
And their organization's like pretty tight knit. They got a lot of really good coaches, whereas like the Packers, you know, you're talking about the Joe Barry what is it? The Joe Barry apology form.
Yeah.
Like if something like that exists, plus all the Aaron Rodgers drama, like you just know it's not quite as held together, which just shows like how much Matt LaFleur means. So I actually completely understand his argument from 1 just for that perspective.
And usually the Packers are kind of like the Patriots. Like the Patriots are no nonsense as an organization, and that's kind of what the Packers have been. I mean, there was a little bit when Favre left, and there was kind of the same situation when Favre left. But even like with that and all the injuries and coming out with wins against with no receivers against the Cardinals, and then a banged up offensive line against one of the best defensive front in the Rams. That's you got to put together quite the game plan. And I feel like they do a really good job putting together game plans against teams.
Yeah, definitely they both have really good arguments. I think it is pretty much a 3-horse race between
I think it's only
2.
3. There's really no other coach that really stands out besides those 3.
All right. Yeah, that is a solid list. Alyssa, do you have anything to add? No?
I don't really know some of the coaches. I only know Mike McCarthy. That's the only coach I know.
He was like 8th on the list, 7th or 8th on the list. So
after he got Dak back, and he brought in the defensive coordinator,
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn. They've been able to get their defense right, and they're playing pretty good football.
Mhm.
But I think that's a pretty good list. But now we're going to move into the NBA. And we're going to start with talking about the Suns. Suns are they 16, 17 game win streak right now?
17.
They're on a
17.
17-win game streak.
17 game win streak. They're playing pretty good basketball right now. Do you guys think, I know it's super early into the season, but are they, do you think they're set to go back to the finals?
Okay, if anyone watched the game last night, it was Warriors and Suns. The first half, Devin Booker got hurt. I don't know how long he's out for, but I don't know if that's gonna like impact them in any way. But yeah, if you talk about let's not talk about the Warriors because they did kind of bad last night.
Shoot, they're on my topic list, but we'll get to that.
But the Suns did pretty good too.
I did watch the game last night, and I will say the Warriors, they were in it. It was a great game, one of the best regular season games I've seen in a while. So fast-paced, both of those teams. So Warriors definitely played solid.
To me, I think the fact that the Warriors lost to the Suns without Devin Booker kind of says a lot, but like it doesn't at the same time. Like Steph Curry didn't have the best shooting night, but like if you look at what Steph Curry has to work with against like a full-powered Suns team, and the fact that they only lost by like 8, it says a lot too. Like just imagine if Klay Thompson comes back and averages like 20, they're not losing that game. Like to me, the West runs through the Warriors when Klay Thompson's back. The Suns are great. They'll be like number 2 because I don't think any other team's going to touch those 1 and 2 spots. Just because the Jazz, they're good, but like you kind of rely on Donovan Mitchell too much. Lakers are trash. Clippers are okay. Paul George having a great season, but like when it comes to like the last couple games in this regular season, it's going to run through one of those teams, and I would pick the Warriors just because how good Steph is. They're playing lights out, you know, but to me, the Suns have a great chance of making the finals again. If not, I would say their floor has to be the conference finals.
The scary part about the Suns is that their team is like the exact same from last year.
Mm-hmm.
So they have, like, they're still pretty young, despite Chris Paul and Jay Crowder. They're still pretty young, like the rest of their core. And all they did was just get finals experience. Sure, it was getting dominated by our legend in Milwaukee. But
not at first.
But yes, not at first, right. You know, they had a 2-0 lead. So, little Bucks bias there, but they are an excellent team. They got their full team back. They're doing exactly what they should be doing. And it's when you're healthy, you dominate. When you're a team that made the finals. And the Bucks are kind of doing that now. The Warriors were kind of doing that and will continue. I think the interesting thing is, like, the Warriors are kind of putting together a relatively new group this year. They added like Otto Porter Jr. and Jordan Poole's been playing way better. Obviously no Klay Thompson yet. They don't have James Wiseman yet. And one huge problem last night was they couldn't stop DeAndre Ayton because they just didn't have anyone tall enough.
They don't have a 5.
James Wiseman will be that 5. Now, he's not nearly good enough, probably, but at least he's got the size and he's a great defender. So even if he's not able to like match him the whole game, you're at least able to give like Draymond Green, who's been excellent this year, a break, or like on Kevon Looney, their current center, who's been around forever, but is just like not tall enough. And the Suns defensively against Steph Curry last night, they were incredible. Mikal Bridges had a lot of
Clamps.
time defending him, and he is one of the best wing defenders in basketball, and the Suns got him on a good deal, and he is going to be big for them, especially since he's fast enough to guard a guy like Curry, even though he has a lot of help. Still, the fact that he's able to, you know, help at least a little, have some help, and still be able to defend Steph Curry, held him to his worst night of the year.
I think he was like 4 for like 20.
Yeah, something like that. It wasn't anything great. To me, though, like, the Suns can only make a finals run if they incorporate the team ball that they showed in the first 2 games of the finals, because the first 2 games of the finals is like what we saw all regular season. It was team oriented. Chris Paul ran the pick and roll with DeAndre Ayton and just dish it out to like Mikal Bridges on the wing. But like after those first 2 games, it was kind of just Devin Booker just taking over, which that team is not going to win off just iso ball, just because you can't have CP3 on the court and him not do anything on the offense, and you can't have DeAndre Ayton be just standing in the paint trying to grab an offensive rebound. Like, you need to incorporate everybody, and that's why Giannis was able to dominate, because they kind of let Giannis do that in a sense too, because nobody could stop him. Whereas like Devin Booker, you can kind of get stopped by Drew Holiday every now and then.
Oh yeah.
But like that to me is the key for the Suns to win a championship. Like that team aspect just has to come into play, and we saw it last night too. So that's what I think. And if they want to make a deep run again in the playoffs.
Yeah, you bring up a good point and talking about the team-oriented play that we saw in those first 2 games in the finals. Like I would watch those 2 games and be like, why are we putting Bobby Portis on? Why are we switching on Chris Paul?
Exactly. You're not supposed to switch there. You fight over the screen.
And Chris Paul just like did whatever he want. He could step back and shoot. He could. They were doing what they wanted to, and they couldn't stop. Milwaukee couldn't stop him at all.
I think one thing that like if you ask me, the 3 best teams in basketball are probably the Suns, Warriors, and then us right now. I think even without Brook, we are pretty darn good, and with him, we're easily 3rd. And like going back to what you said about team-oriented basketball, it's like those are probably the 3 best passing teams in the NBA, and they're the 3 best. And if you watched last night, the Warriors turned it over a lot, but it was great defense by the Suns. And I think once you get Clay and Wiseman back, and they're able, I mean, Steve Kerr's an excellent coach. You're able to just like group all of that together. You could have one of the best Western Conference finals we've had in years. If everyone's healthy, Suns, Warriors, you just have like this experience of the Suns plus the experience of the Warriors, and they all have like young guys mixed in that are doing great. Like Steph had a horrible night last night, but it was because he was being defended so well, and it allowed Jordan Poole to have a crazy night. I believe he had almost 30 points last night, hit 7 threes, I think. So like imagine that, but like also Klay Thompson's on the court.
He had 28 points. 28
points. So just an incredible game, and that just shows like even if Steph has a bad night, they can still open it up and score, and that should scare the bleep out of anyone in the West that thinks they have a chance, other than the Suns, who clearly showed that they can hold their own against them.
Yeah, that'll be a great conference finals. I definitely would probably pick the Warriors though, just because if you look at like where the Warriors were, like, was that 6 years ago when they won the first chip? You got Andrew Bogut running the 5. Like, if you think about it, and James Wiseman is like, we haven't seen much from him yet to like say that he's like better than Andrew Bogut, but like his ceiling is like way better than Andrew Bogut. So if you can win a chip with Andrew Bogut at your 5, you can seriously make the argument that the Warriors can make a championship run with Wiseman at the 5. Just because that team is just so great in terms of like passing the ball, like you said. Like the 3 best teams in terms of like passing the ball are Bucks, Suns, Warriors, and just it's a great NBA season that we have so far.
Yeah, if you put Wiseman in and then add Klay Thompson back in, they're going to be dangerous.
It's essentially the same nucleus that they had like 6 years ago, just with like different names.
And they have Andre Iguodala back, weirdly, who was a part of all those teams. So that's just another guy, even if he's much older and worse than he was, just to be able to give experience to these young guys that are playing bigger minutes. And you could almost, like you said, the Bogut thing, he was elderly during that finals. So, like, not even best Bogut. You're getting the last version of Bogut that existed. And then their other centers during these runs have been, like, DeMarcus Cousins, who barely played and wasn't very good. And then it was, like, Kevon Looney for a couple of years. So, like, they don't need a center. And in theory, Wiseman could be their best center that they've ever had, which is horrifying to think about the Warriors with 2 of the best shooters ever. Draymond Green, who has Defensive Player of the Year argument this year. I think Giannis should win it, but Draymond absolutely has an argument. and then they have an actual rim protector that isn't extremely old or undersized, that's pretty scary.
I think we forget about the fact that Andrew Wiggins averages this like quietest 20 points per game. Like the projected lineup, like starting lineup come Klay Thompson time is like Steph 1, Klay 2, Wiggins at like 3, Draymond at 4 or 5, and you put Wiseman at the 5. And then you got Poole, and, like Andre Iguodala and GP second coming off the bench.
Yeah,
like
Gary Payton's been crazy.
Gary Payton's been so good on defense, and like his airtime is just great. Like I love the highlights when he's just dunking on people. Like the Warriors look so good to where it's just like it. You can't even say like they're overrated right now. Like they haven't had like the toughest schedule, but they've come back from like 20-point deficits to like win like against the Cavs and like the Hornets. Like that team is just insane.
I think we kind of moved on to my next topic without actually going there. Because my next question was like, next topic was like, are the Warriors legit? And like we've been saying, like you get the pieces back that you need. Then you start to kind of find your fit with those. And yeah, you could say that they are quite legit. They're in the top 3, like we've been saying. So.
And then just like looking at the rest of the West, like you brought up, like I think the Clippers, I just don't think have a chance without Kawhi to really match up with these teams.
Oh yeah, he's out for the whole season.
Torn ACL, which is just sad. But
you think that's gonna be like Klay Thompson, where he's just out for like a season or two?
They're saying he's supposed to be back Christmas, so I don't know. I don't know for sure if that'll be what happened. But by the way, if you're a gambling person or if you're in a pool, hammer the Warriors that day. On Christmas Day, getting Klay back, that would be absolutely electric. But, like, just looking at the rest of the West, like, Clippers no Kawhi. The Lakers are just old, and their offense is sad half the time. So I just don't know if they can make it, like, playing that amount of games to, like, a Western Conference Finals without breaking down, much less actually performing, even though I still think LeBron is great. And then, like you said, the Jazz kind of fakers, like D-Mitch is inconsistent. The Nuggets, they're always kind of a fake image team. I don't hate them. I like Jokic, but in the end, it comes down to those two, I think, pretty easily. And I kind of have trouble thinking. I mean, the Grizzlies even, I like Ja Morant.
It's too much Ja Morant.
Jaren Jackson, but they're probably still a couple years away even. So I think the East is deeper, much deeper than the West.
Yeah, when you said that, like I think it's like inarguable at this point that the East is like way better. Because if you look at like the top 5 teams in the East compared to like the top 5 teams in the West, like the 2 standouts in the West are Warriors, Suns, obviously. But like the East is so deep in terms of like who's good now, because you got to even mix like the Hornets and like the Bulls into it now, which like 2 years ago you wouldn't even think they'd be in like the mix for like a spot. But like the Bulls are playing so good. Bucks 8-game win streak or something like that. Nets, Kevin Durant doing his thing. Celtics aren't as good, but like Sixers without Ben Simmons have honestly like low key kind of good. They're above 500. LaMelo's just box office, and then the big 3 in Chicago is just tearing it up too. So like the East is low-key harder because the West is just, there's not enough playoff experience in the West for those teams to be considered like, I guess, championship contenders. Whereas like, even though the East is really stacked, you can honestly see any team come out of the East. Like we saw Atlanta make the freaking conference finals last year, so who knows?
What I was gonna say, like, what about the Bulls and the Heat?
I forgot to mention the Heat too.
13-8.
Wow,
which is surprising. Like, I wouldn't think the Wizards would be 13-8.
Are the Celtics? I looked at this a little earlier. They are out of the playoffs, I believe, right now. The Celtics are the 11.
Yeah, they're
11.
They're
11.
below. Yeah, they're below.
Just think about how crazy that is. Like they are. Like if we matched up against them in the playoffs, I would be confident. But like that's still a pretty tough team, and they're not even within the top 10 teams in the Eastern Conference right now, just showing how deep it is.
It's pretty crazy if you really think about it. But like the Cavs are 11-10. They're staying at the 8th spot. Like Raptors, low-key can make a push with Siakam back. But yeah, this season's great. But like if we're reverting back to like the Warriors, Steph Curry has aged like fine wine. Dude just gets better each and every season. Like, to me, he's the best player in the league. I want to say Giannis, but what Steph Curry is doing right now is just so crazy with like the team that he has right now without Klay Thompson and James Wiseman back. You know, it's just absolutely insane. Like, Giannis is having like a great season, as he always does. My pick for Depoy, just because he's 6'11", guarding 1 through 5. Like, you can't really deny that. So like, the Warriors to me are so legit. Like, I think they're more legit than like when they had Kevin Durant for some reason. Just because like those first few games with Kevin Durant were a little rocky, but like the season that they're having right now is just insane with how talented the league is at the current moment.
Do you think the Lakers can figure things out, or are you just
I've never been a Laker fan. I've always been a Kobe fan, but not a Laker fan. The Lakers are just too old. You're going to have LeBron out for a week and a half with COVID safety protocol. Kind of sucks because he's on my fantasy team.
Same.
The Lakers, when they get into a half-court setting, it's not good. They're too old. They don't have any shooters besides Carmelo, and like if you want to put Malik Monk in there. Like, fast break, they're awesome, but like you get into like that half-court setting, which obviously playoff time comes, it's going to be half-court setting. You're not going to run it. You can't have Westbrook and LeBron running a half-court offense at the same time.
got the Uncle Drew squad running around?
Exactly.
It's crazy how, like, you watch the Lakers and they will play an awful team, and that awful team makes it a very competitive game. And that scares me for them long term because, like, when you have LeBron on your team and you can't, like, coast to at least some victories, the Kings took them to triple overtime. Quadruple overtime?
Quadruple overtime.
Oh, my
You
goodness.
said the Kings?
The Kings.
Yeah, but then
They're the worst team in basketball.
Yeah, they knocked the Kings out like last night or something like pretty bad, but 4 overtimes is pretty
And the
insane.
Pistons gave them a couple problems this year. Like,
Yeah.
how can I trust? And I think they can still, like, make a push because that's just how talented LeBron is. But, like, AD's having the worst year of his career, and it's not remotely close. He can't shoot anymore, which I didn't expect to happen. And, like, just when we played the Lakers, he had, like, AD is known as a defender, one of the best defenders of his generation. He wanted no part of Giannis. Like, Giannis was getting whatever he wanted. And to me, that was like, wow. So this guy isn't even, like, stepping up to the plate to, like, I'm at least going to give Giannis some problems. Like, even though Giannis is a little younger, that could have something to do with it. But they just look old. And Russ, some games are good, but how can you trust him in a playoff game that's, like you said, half-court offense most of the time? And, like, he's not going to be able to just hit a pull-up jumper when you need to. It's that bad with him sometimes. So then you're basically just relying on LeBron either standing there waiting for Russ to kick it to him, which you don't want him doing that. You want him being ball handler.
Exactly.
And then who else is he going to kick to? I mean, like you said, Monk and Carmelo, and one of them's in foul trouble. They're basically screwed. So I don't know. It really scares me. But again, like, the West is weak enough where they could, in theory, make a push.
Yeah, to me, the Lakers are just, it's all hype, you know? That's all it is. Like, Anthony Davis is like a top 5 talent in the league, but he's just not top 5 anymore. Like, Giannis eats his lunch every freaking time they play. Like, Giannis is the best power forward in the league. AD is 2, and to me will always be 2 unless he, like, does something crazy. Like, that one year he averaged like 28 and like 12. But like Anthony Davis should not look slow, but he looks slow just because he's playing with a lot of slow people. And he has to play too much off ball. I think you kind of got to give him the ball in the post a little bit just because he is a good post player. And he has, like, the mid-range, and you can say he has a better three-pointer than Giannis, but Giannis has more three-point makes in his career, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, to me, the Lakers can obviously make a push. Like, after the Jazz, there's really not really standout teams I'm looking at right now. You got Mavericks, Grizzlies, Clippers, and the T-Wolves. So, like, the Lakers can obviously beat any of those teams, I think, in a 7-game series, especially Grizzlies, Mavericks, T-Wolves. But, like, if you're going against the Jazz, Warriors, or the Suns, you're not winning. Like, you got to make something happen at the trade deadline. I would even think about trading Russell Westbrook just because, I mean, his trade value might be a little low right now, but at least he'll get something in return just because it's not working. Like, Russell Westbrook's too much of a ball hog to play with. He's too ball dominant and too ball oriented to where you can't have LeBron James on the same court.
Yeah, and just like not even like he's ball dominant and that used to be fine. But now he's turnover crazy too, especially late in games. And that's horrible. And this is like I was thinking this earlier, this would be like the Mavericks' perfect time to like make a move at the trade deadline. Like with the West looking so down bad, Luka's obviously going to be great in the playoffs. Kristaps is actually having a good year. So like you trade away a couple pieces and you're able to get a third guy or maybe even a second guy that would be better than Kristaps. I don't know exactly who. I'd have to see like a team maybe drop out that would want to sell on a player, but they would be in a perfect spot to like be that third team to fight for going to the finals.
Yeah, Dallas needs the wing. I think they need that two guard just because Luka's so ball dominant. Kristaps can do it too. So if they were to get like, I don't really know who's available.
Buddy Hield?
Yeah, Buddy Hield I was thinking about too because dude's a sharpshooter, 3-point contest champion, whatever. But he doesn't need the ball. He's like a Klay Thompson. But like for Lakers, I could see them trading Westbrook for like a Kemba Walker just because Kemba's not even starting for the Knicks anymore. And just because Kemba Walker can play off ball. Sure, he does dribble a lot, but I think he's a better off ball player than Russell Westbrook is.
I don't even know if they'd have to give up Russ, honestly. Because
Yeah, you wouldn't have to, I think, just because Kemba's trade value has gone down since the Celtics years.
Yeah. Big time.
I was gonna say, you mentioned how Anthony Davis didn't want any part of Giannis. My follow-up was, who does want any part of Giannis?
That's a good point.
Nobody.
When he's going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, technically the last time he was like shut down was, I guess, the Heat.
I would
in
even
the bubble.
I would say like even push it farther, Kawhi, like Toronto.
Yeah, because he did get hurt near the end of the Heat series, and we were just playing bad as a team.
To me, the bubble doesn't count. I don't count the bubble season. I just don't.
Fair enough.
It was so weird. Yeah, that shouldn't count. But we will wrap up today's show with some final thoughts. We will start with Aaron. What are your final thoughts today?
Just go Bucks, and I think Packers will make the Super Bowl.
Alyssa?
The Bucks run tonight at 7.
Who are they playing? I guess I could look, but...
The Hornets.
Ooh.
I'm not that worried. Even though they are pretty good, but I'm not worried. Parker?
Bucks got DeMarcus Cousins. I'm kind of excited about
Totally
that.
forgot
saw
about that.
I don't know exactly what his role will be. I guess he's active tonight, but I loved him, absolutely loved him when he was a King and a Pelican. He was putting up crazy numbers. He's not that guy anymore, but we do need a true center, and I like his toughness, so I'm happy to see him.
So under the radar.
Yeah.
I just heard it somewhere. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
It was really low key.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of this move, so I hope it works out.
My final thoughts today, go Bucks, go Lions, go Packers. I believe Packers are in the position to make a Super Bowl run even with some key players still out. They have the talent, they have the ability to get it done this year, I think. So I think this will be the last year to get it done with all the contracts coming up. But that will wrap up today's show. Hawk Talk here on 91.7 The Edge. I hope you have a good one, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yo, this is Shinobi Ninja.